Taylor Jason back.
Oh, yeah. Good morning, everybody. Hope you all are having an amazing day today. I have a very, very interesting story to share with you guys today. It's pretty sad, but it's there's a little whatever in there, and I'm really interested to see what you have to say, Rico, being a dope dad. It's a little bit long, so I'm going to try to get through this as fast as possible. But NYC Children's Services Agency is to settle with a parent allegedly targeted for marijuana and their race. The Administration of Children's Services has agreed to a first-of-its-kind judgment after a parent accused the agency of targeting her for marijuana use and taking her newborn son. Months after adult use was legalized statewide, according to the parent's lawyer and court records, the woman, Shawnetto Rivers, will receive more than $75,000 and payment for legal fees after she accused New York City and its child welfare agency of separating her from her son when he and Rivers tested positive for marijuana in August of 2021. Rivers, who was black, accused ACS in a lawsuit filed in May of pursuing her for marijuana use because of her race, citing a history of similar complaints against the agency that preceded its alleged violation of state law. Rivers' proceedings with ACS concerning her son, identified in federal court papers as TW, came months after New York State legalized cannabis use in March of 2021. In a quote, even after a judge required ACS to reunite Miss Rivers with her baby, ACS continued to subject Miss Rivers to needless court proceedings and a litany of conditions that interfered with her parenting of TW for months, while the unlawful removal of her baby was ratified by senior ACS leadership, the complaint reads. This was not because ACS was trying to protect TW. This was because Miss Rivers is black, she says. The previously unreported judgment signed by a federal judge on August 30th is believed by attorneys and advocates to be the first of its kind since New York State legalized adult use cannabis use in March of 2021. Through similar claims were made long before then. A Gothamist investigation last year showed that despite statewide legalization and promises of reform, the agency continued to cite parents' marijuana use in proceedings and separate them from their children. All of the parents who described similar encounters with the agency were black. ACS spokesperson Stephanie Jindal said the state and city policy that marijuana is not in and of itself a bias for bringing allegations of neglect against a parent. And in a quote, in all of our cases, including those with substance misuse allegations, we assess child safety on a case-by-case basis, looking at actual or potential harm to a child and the parent's capacity to care for the child. A statement from Jendell reads in part. The city law department did not return a request for comment, and despite promises of reform, the agency has been plagued by accusations of racial bias deeply rooted within the institution that often results in the separation of black families who bear the brunt of enforcement in the child welfare system. In a quote, I didn't just bring this lawsuit for myself, but for every black family that ACS has ripped apart, Rivers said in a statement through her attorney. In her lawsuit, Rivers claims that the hospital staff tested her for drugs without her consent in August of 2021 when she was overwhelmed with happiness and drained by the birth of her son, TW. Rivers and her newborn tested positive for marijuana, and the agency told hospital staff to hold the child indefinitely, according to the federal lawsuit. A family court judge who reunited them days later said evidence presented by the agency did not meet the legal bar to demonstrate an imminent risk of harm to her newborn, including claims from a hospital worker that she smoked marijuana in the hospital room or her previous experience with the child welfare system when her older children were living with their grandmother. A court-ordered investigation report related to the custody of her older children, which was released 2 months before the birth of her son, TW, said there was, in quotes, no basis to believe that Miss Rivers misuses drugs or alcohol, which the federal lawsuit directly refers to. After Rivers gave birth to TW, neither one received any treatment or medical counseling from the hospital related to the marijuana test results, and that the complaint reads. Though Rivers was reunited with her son, ACS continued to pursue its case against her, subjecting her and TW to unannounced visits and other disruptions before voluntarily withdrawing its neglect petition in December of 2021. According to the suit, Rivers also did not regain custody of her two older children until January of this year after proceedings related to TW interrupted and delayed the reunification with her older children, her complaint reads. Defendants targeted Miss Rivers because of her race and acted to separate Miss Rivers from her baby based solely on marijuana use, which was a violation of state law, the complaint reads. And Niji Jain, who represented Rivers in her lawsuit and serves as director of the Bronx Defenders Impact litigation practice, said the judgment enforces a provision of the law dictating that child welfare agencies like ACS cannot separate a family based on marijuana use alone. And in a quote, "We hope this case serves as a model for other people who want to fight back against ACS and its racist treatment of New York City families and their racialized use of marijuana and drug testing more generally against parents of color," Jane said. Jane was a lead attorney for Rivers, who, along with the Bronx Defenders, was also represented pro bono by attorneys at Arnaud and Porter K. Scholler, LLP, a private law firm. Still, Jane conceded the agreement meant that documents from ACS that attorneys hoped to obtain through discovery and introduce publicly through a trial would not be brought to light. Advocates and lawyers have long pointed to transparency issues with the agency, and the ACS has not admitted wrongdoing as a result of the judgment. And in a quote, "For years, ACS has chosen to operate in secrecy and hide from accountability when it comes to the data, the stories, and the widely known fact that there is a racial bias problem within the agency," Jane said. Rather than facing the parents and families who they police and surveil and separate every day, every year, they're choosing a different path. Joyce McLean, who as founder and executive director of JMAC for Families, has long advocated for parents in the child welfare system and said it was hard to believe that anything would change after the judgment. And in a final quote, they say, "I hope that change comes out of this, but I'm not convinced that it will," McLean said. But she added, "A success like this for Rivers and families like hers was long overdue." And they also say, "What I hope for the family is freedom," she said. "Freedom to be who you are and do the things that you enjoy without being punished by a system that doesn't have your best interests." Well, I'm happy that this family was reunited, and I'm definitely believe that ACS probably is definitely targeting families disproportionately in regards to this child welfare system, because we know California does it, so why wouldn't New York does it? And this is Jason Beck reporting for the High at 9 News Hour. What do y'all think about this?
She was smoking weed in the hospital?
Man, bro, she was with that. What is happening
now?
Hey, there's levels of this shit.
I don't even want to talk.
Man,
this one's got layers.
How do we know it wasn't hemp she was smoking in the hospital?
I just want to point out to all the viewers out there,
it was THCA.
and to the 100,000 followers here on Instagram that's watching High 9 News. I want to thank everybody on my Instagram for make sure y'all support us. I just want to say, notice that this is in New York City.
Yep.
Highly liberal city. So for everybody out there that keep talking about how it's one side or the other, it's both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever you are and you are poor, you will be first to be victimized. That's it. That's just what it is.
That's how
Like,
it's been.
that's how it's been. It doesn't matter if you're a liberal or a Republican. When you're poor, you're the first person to be victimized.
Tony, do you think this woman was in the right?
I think that this woman was in the
You
right.
think she was victimized?
I believe so.
I mean, they had no right to separate her from her child.
It's legal, bro. It's legal.
It is legal.
It's legal.
It is legal.
Like, if you walk into New York right now, New York smells like marijuana.
It might not be legal to smoke in the hospital, but it is legal to consume cannabis.
So that's like if someone smokes a cigarette in the hospital, you give them a fine.
You give them a fine, exactly. You don't take their kids away because they're
Smoking weed in the hospital when she was giving birth.
Bro, people smoke. If you smoke cigarettes in a hospital, you get a fine. It's not illegal though.
I mean, this is America. There's people that are.
They give you warnings to tell you don't smoke while you're pregnant on the carton of cigarettes. But if you see a pregnant woman smoking, the police don't come with her.
That's true. That's true. They don't take your kids away to say you were smoking during your pregnancy and therefore you've harmed your baby. They do not do that.
It's not illegal.
Weed is a legal drug like Oxycodone, all those other pain pills. So
I want to point out that this is a perpetual issue for women across the board, not just in New York, not just in California, across the country. Women are constantly being victimized by the healthcare industry for their cannabis consumption. Women will go in not knowing they are pregnant, get a pregnancy test, also happen to test positive for cannabis if they test them, whether they are consenting to it or not. And then their entire pregnancy and sometimes through the birth of their child, they are being scrutinized, tested, and attacked for their cannabis consumption when they didn't even know they were pregnant. And this is just another way.
Or maybe they took edibles.
No, but it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
The fact of the matter is that these women are being unfairly targeted for their cannabis consumption. It's just another way for people to not only keep poor people down and people of color down, but just women in general.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah,
percent right.
100%.
You know what?
This
is everybody on Instagram. This is why this is the greatest show. You need to be watching. Do you see this?
I think Republicans rejoice because she got her freedom. But come on, man, you can't be smoking in no hospital.
The system has a lot of bias in it. And this decision stopped way short of uncovering the bias in the system. Because I have children that had children and they smoked weed, and it was a hard path to try to get through. And it's ridiculous. I mean, nobody that I know that uses cannabis and has children is feeding it to their children and putting them in positions of jeopardy. And that's sort of the underlying assumption here. You smoke weed, there's something wrong with you. It goes back to that moral argument they always made about drugs. If you smoke weed, you're morally corrupt. So we're going to take your kids and make you come back and fight for it. Well, fuck you. This is the bias that we have to attack.
No, you have agenda points of attack. When you're fighting against cannabis or you're trying to keep impoverished people poor, you have certain agendas you put in play to help perpetuate that. And that's all. And
then also what happens is this. When you have a culture where people are taking things from basically begging, what I mean? Like when you're taking a Section 8 apartment from these people, you're essentially allowing them to become your probation officer. They can come into your home, they can inspect your house, they inspect your children.
The federal government is your landlord at that point, and they can dictate what you can do inside of your home.
They're your actual probation officer. It's not even a point of being like a landlord doesn't have the ability to just come check your house whenever they want. You know what I mean? And if they do, they would have to give you forewarning, make sure that you're there. Section 8 is not like that.
It puts you immediately into the confines of the so-called nanny state.
So when you sign up for help, you lose rights. That's just the American way. I give you something, you give me something. It sucks that it has to be that way. It should just be helping people who are less fortunate. But then those programs.
But the problem is also that, and I'm not saying this too long, but the problem is also that there are people who go on these programs and intend to stay on it for the rest of their lives. So they're trying to incentivize it too as well. So if you come here, you're only here for a little bit of time, and then you're supposed to go ahead and go.
People intend. I can only talk about what actually happens. What you intend, you may not never do.
That's propaganda. There's just very, very, very few people that are in that category. People get caught up in the system because of extenuating circumstances, and unfortunately, the people who get on blast more for it look like you and me.
Right. Let's not harp on this, but there's great class disparities throughout America because how some people came here and how their lives begun when they had their free will. So there's always gonna be that, but we gotta let's just keep it real. The situations affect women and minorities because those are the people who are at the bottom rungs here, and sometimes it's hard to pull yourself up. I've pulled myself up plenty, but it's hard. And everybody isn't equipped.
I object strenuously to doctors being co-opted into testing people for shit that has nothing to do with medicine. This is the cops leaning on and saying, "Oh, why did they drug test this lady? What the fuck business was it of theirs?"
She was on Medicaid, on welfare, and she's not even really considered a citizen. She's considered a ward of the state.
A ward of the state.
And she doesn't have the same rights as someone who's paying for it themselves, who hasn't signed that away because you need help. And that's the messed up part about our bureaucracy.
Rochelle.
I get it. But the government has scared doctors into being their sycophants, and those guys don't have a hair on their ass. They don't tell them, "No, I'm not drug testing people until it's medically required." No, they do what they're told. They do these drug tests.
The government is giving the hospital money.
Yeah.
The government, the clinic. The
Rochelle.
government it makes the stipends for the hospital. So if you want to get paid, you're going to do what Uncle says.
Rochelle, you had something to say on this, and then we're going to wrap this story up.
Yeah, I just want to make one final point, which is not only are we causing harm to these women and families, but the children and the effects for the rest of their lives that they are going to be suffering because they didn't have that critical attachment with their mothers in their infancy is incredibly damaging for the rest of their lives. It only further perpetuates these issues that we're talking about right now. I hope that everyone realizes that as well.
Facts.
Like recidivism.
100%.
Like recidivism. It was designed this way. You know,
exactly.
We think of things, think of the effects.
We got to keep it moving. We got to keep it moving. We're already over time on this. But coming up next, it's everyone's favorite foul mouth uncle. That's right, Mr. Dale.